There are photos of the workers going in through the Rafah crossing, which is via Egypt, and also reports that a number of them came back through the Israeli-controlled crossing, which is called Kerem Shalom, near the Egyptian-Gaza border. So it looks like those workers, which have been held in Israel for some weeks now, since the beginning of this conflict on October 7th, have been allowed to go back. Some of them alleged that they were mistreated in Israeli custody, and there were some terrible photos and video about that have been circling in the Israeli media, and that treatment's been condemned by Israeli officials. But the workers themselves said they were treated very poorly, but it doesn't look like they're especially happy, I suppose, to be sent back into a conflict zone. These workers were in Israel performing service and other jobs as part of an arrangement that Israel has with Gazans, and actually it was meant to, an increase in work permits to Gazans was meant to be one of the things preventing any further conflict between Israel and militant groups in Gaza. And, you know, it's arguable that it was actually succeeding. Gazans were broadly in favour of these measures and broadly against, in surveys just before this conflict broke out, broadly against Hamas breaking any of the ceasefire arrangement it had in place with Israel. But now it looks like that's fallen apart, and Israel says there will be no more work permits issued to Gazans even after this conflict. Its government has also taken the decision, Manny, to stop paying the Palestinian Authority, which is the recognised government of the Palestinian territories based in Ramallah, not in the West Bank, not in Gaza, stop paying them the proportion of tax revenues it collects on behalf of Gazans. To explain, Israel collects tax revenues on behalf of the Palestinian Authority, and it pays them based on its own rules to enable services to be funded and things like that. It was collecting them and paying them to the PA for the population in Gaza. It's now made a decision that it will no longer do that. The justification of the Israeli government for that decision is that it wants now a complete separation from Gaza.
So, among other developments this evening, Antony Blinken has arrived in Israel. He says he would like to discuss pauses in fighting there, but he's also stressing that he will not stop Israel from defending itself.
That's right. So Antony Blinken, the Secretary of State, began meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu in the army headquarters in Tel Aviv. He'd said prior to the meeting, it is a private meeting, but he'd said prior to the meeting that he wanted to lay out some concrete measures that would be taken to protect civilians in Gaza, and also discuss the possibility of humanitarian pauses in the fighting, which would allow perhaps better conditions for the release of Israeli and other hostages held inside Gaza, and also the delivery of humanitarian aid. The US language about its support for Israel and the conduct of the conflict has really shifted, and that's reflected by growing international, and that's the result of growing international outrage about the high civilian death toll in Gaza. So you can see in his statements Antony Blinken starting to say the US is prioritising reducing civilian harm. The US wants pauses in the fighting to allow for perhaps some humanitarian aid to reach Gazans. But one thing that's been clarified by the US National Security Council is that it is categorically not advocating for a ceasefire. A ceasefire, the United States government said, would give Hamas time to regroup. But however, the diplomatic challenge for Antony Blinken on the rest of this visit, he's going to go to Jordan after he finishes here in Israel, is that most of the Arab world wants a ceasefire. And there are big elements in other parts of the world too that say the only solution is a ceasefire, and then a more durable peace deal after that. So Antony Blinken, in advocating for humanitarian pauses, is not alone. Australia's also done the same, but he's going to find a tough audience when he goes around the rest of the Middle East.
Finally, Eric, Hezbollah chief Hassan Nasrallah was expected to deliver a speech this evening. Many are expecting it to have a profound impact on the region, I understand.
That's right, because Hezbollah, the group which Hassan Nasrallah leads, is thought to be better equipped and with more battle experience than Hamas. So a much bigger threat to Israel and also to the region if it decides to meaningfully enter this conflict. So everybody is watching. There are millions of people in Lebanon, hundreds of thousands in northern Israel, and millions across the wider region who are really concerned about whether or not Hezbollah will decide to step into this conflict in a big way. So far, it has limited its involvement to rocket strikes, some cross-border fire, and also with anti-tank missiles attempting to hit Israeli equipment and positions. But that's not exactly what everyone's afraid of. Everyone's afraid of Hezbollah, deploying lots and lots of rockets. It has a huge rocket arsenal, more than 100,000 it's estimated to have. It has explosive-laden drones, and it has a significant manpower and has previously attempted to infiltrate northern parts of Israel. So it poses a significant threat. The question is, what will Hezbollah do, and where, and also what will other Iranian-backed groups do around the region? So Iran's role in this is considered crucial. Will Iran prefer that Hezbollah limit its involvement and not strike off a larger war in the region? We simply don't know, and most people around here are nervously watching to find out.